Equity Debate Club. Justin Smith, one of your PJ teaching professionals here. Man, what a beautiful morning this is out here in sunny Florida. We are so happy to have you guys back and can't wait for an awesome season here again at Equity Debate Club. So today I want to talk about the short game and 3 simple concepts I think will help you with your game around the green. Now let's start with talking about short game. So a few things that I see maybe a little inconsistent, or we'll call it maybe non-negotiables around the green that need to happen would be we need tempo, and we need to understand how to develop our low point, which is basically the lowest point of the arc of the club, as I've mentioned in other videos. So let's start with the tempo part. Tempo is just basically rhythm or the flow of the golf swing. So when we set up to our greenside shots, what we want to feel is a nice rhythm here. So it's 1 minus 2. Now I say minus because when we take the club away, that's the 1. When we sort of hit our, let's say, end of the backswing and starting of the downswing, our transition, it's going to be the minus, and 2 is impact. So try to time that up. 1 minus 2. Second, do you hear that thing brush the ground? So that would be our low point. Now, on these specific shots, most of the time our low point is going to be ahead of the golf ball. That doesn't mean we need to come straight down like an airplane and crash it in the ground, but what we need to feel here is more or less that our sternum is pretty much over the golf ball the entire time. As you can see here, I'm not really going this way or this way. I'm not leaning back to help in the air, and I'm not going this way to hit it lower. So I'll show you that in a second, how to do these with the same setup for the most part. Now, tempo, which is rhythm, which is flow. We have our low point. You can be creative around the greens too. So there's no one way to do this, or you must do it this way. So I'm just giving you options here. And there are plenty more that I can give here in the near future. So let's start with the first one. There are 3 different concepts: a low, a medium, and a high. And we're going to call them, the low one's going to be the hold. Then we're going to get our medium, which is going to be the flow. Then we're going to get our high one, which is the go. Okay, so let's start with our hold. I want you to take your most lofted golf club. This is sort of a test. And this is going to be your lower shot. So I have a 60 degree here. And basically I'm going to have a slightly narrow stance with the ball position in the center. And I'm going to have my handle, basically the butt end of the club is facing my left pocket. As you can see, it's forward here. Now, the first 2 things I mentioned, the 1 minus 2 is our tempo and hitting the ground. We need to get nice flow to the golf swing. You can kind of see how it's just nice and rocking. The knees are moving, the hips are moving, okay? We can't just face the camera and go like this because we're never probably going to get consistent contact. So that hold shot, the way we set up to it's going to be a little bit taller, a little bit closer. Handle basically at your left pocket. Okay, now from here, all we're going to do is just turn. Okay, turn and brush. So you can kind of see how that went just a little bit lower. That's a lob wedge, so that's really low for a lob wedge. But don't be fearful of the ground. I know we've all done that before, and man, my wrist hurts, but I'm trying to give you something that might have more of a positive, vibe instead of don't do this or a negative vibe. So the second one would be the flow. Okay. We're just going to let this thing flow like the first one, but the only thing is it's probably going to be just a little bit higher, which is medium height. So flowing, the only thing that changes really at setup is ball position is slightly left of center for a right-handed golfer. The handle, instead of being at the left pocket, it's between the pocket and sort of our belly button. But all the same concepts. We might open the face just a little bit, depending on sort of how much grass we have or whatnot, or how the lie is. And from there, just make the same motions. Now, the first one, if you noticed, sort of the hold, when I finished, my handle was forward. So you can kind of see how I kind of hold on to it, and the shaft is leaning this way. So the hands are in front of the club head. Now, the flow, if you can see here, basically my left arm is on the same plane as the golf club. So the lead arm is going to be basically straight down with this to let it flow. So it's going to go a little bit higher because we've let that sort of angle out, and it has less shaft lean there. The setup for that one's going to be a little bit further away from the ball, as opposed to the first one's the hold. Now we're going to get a little further away with the hands a little bit lower, probably since we're further away. and slightly open from there. And you're going to take a swing, and you can see how that went a little bit higher there. So good tempo, good turf interaction, a little bit higher. Now last would be our go. So this is our higher shot. It's not a flop shot. It's not anything, to get out of jail. You need to reevaluate where your second shot went or third shot around the green if we're having to hit flop shots. So lastly, now if the first one had shaft lean, the second one had, let's say, basically none, what's the third one going to be? So the third one's going to be, the setup position's going to be a little bit further away from it, as I'll show you in a second. You're going to have the handle right at your belly button, and we're going to try to return it there. So we're going to try to return it in this position and then continue to release the club. So you can kind of see how my left arm has a little different angle now because I've let this thing go. So we're going to get a little more hinge, a little more back bend to the right wrist on the backswing, and then we're going to sort of toss that out. It's a right hand kind of motion. You can see how this moves here, okay? But you're always doing what? You're always turning in good tempo, okay? So you can kind of look at the right hand here. Here's the hold, here's the flow, and here's the go. I hope that paints a good picture for you. But lastly, I just want to say, here's the higher setup. A little bit further away, hands a little lower, club face a little open, and we get a little bit higher there. All three of those are pretty much in the same area. But as you can tell, I hit the ground every time. You're going to get away with it more if you hit the ground a little bit behind it than none at all. Okay, so these should help you there. Now, I love the short game, as I mentioned before, so if you have any question on your short game or any other parts of your game, please feel free to reach out and I'd be happy to help you. Have an awesome day.